Okay. Well, hello, RLP fam. I am so happy that you're tuning in with us. And today, obviously, we have quite a few things to talk about. We've been rocked a little bit with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and I did share this on our Instagram for those of you that follow us on there. But last week, we had a scheduled episode that was meant to go out, and me and Dale had pre-recorded it a few weeks ago before he left for his vacation, and I just had the most random, weird technical glitches that week. It just wasn't uploading, and this was before Wednesday, so before everything happened. And I honestly was just kind of like, I'll just have to deal with it when I get back. And now I know why that episode never uploaded. It was not right timing. And so today what we want to do, our goal here, and before I introduce our awesome guest that we have, I want to just speak to some of the things that you guys are saying, because that is the lifeblood of our podcast, right? So we already have several questions, a handful that have just came in this last week, flooded my inbox. And you guys can kind of say it probably better than I to start this off. So I'm going to just go ahead and read this question from one of you guys. I am so full of feelings after Charlie Kirk's assassination, I could burst. What do we do as Christians to fight the evil, blind, sick mentality taking over this world? I am frankly sick of waiting for Jesus' second coming. I am sick of loving everyone and waiting for them all to be saved. I want to do something now, and it isn't pretty. And they put in parentheses, I know it's a sin. Don't get on me for that. I love the preaching we get every Sunday. But is it time to get political and do something, get involved? Or do we patiently wait? We're so afraid of offending someone, we keep silent. No more. Guide us, Dale, before we become ungodly like those who are wrong. And we'll definitely have an episode when Dale gets back, because this is an ongoing conversation. But I want to lead with that. And then I sent out a message to my volunteer team, the awesome social media team here at Foothills, and they also had some really good feedback. I said, what do we need from the church right now? I want to hear from you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and read their responses to that question. This first person says, this last week was so hard with everything. I feel like people need to know the love of Jesus right now, the kind that is warm, family, like open arms to anyone. Doesn't matter where their walk with Christ looks like, whether new Christians are coming back to Christ, we just need to show openness. And then I had another friend that said, I think something people need is guidance between righteous fury and just anger. When to say something or call someone out, when not to, or whether we should, differences for Christians versus non-Christians. How to have conversations with people who maybe felt like Charlie had it coming or think we are elevating his death over the death of students. How to navigate these conversations without falling into the trap of argument or being defensive. So I think the temperature right now is all of those things. We're feeling all those things. I was here at work on Wednesday, and I'll never forget where I was at when this happened. I'll never forget the feeling. And my first feeling was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know Charlie personally. I listened to him all the time. He's in our house all the time, but I don't know him personally. Why is this affecting me so deeply? And luckily I work for great people, and Mike was willing to let me go a little early because I just couldn't focus on anything else. And then when I got home, my husband kind of confirmed it because he was really emotional about this too, which I never see Jared emotional. So, and it just really rocked us. I think that was the first trauma. And I think the second trauma, and I don't want to be a trauma drama queen, but the second trauma was seeing, there was a lot of great impact. There was a lot of people saying beautiful things, really honoring his memory and what he was about, which was openly debating people that disagreed with him. He was so respectful, regardless of the narrative spinning out there. But the second trauma was seeing people literally dancing on grave, rejoicing, celebrating. I saw a lot of Christians be really defensive and say things like what my teammate here said about, you guys care less about school shootings and just constant finger pointing. So there's just so much darkness out there. It's hard to stay grounded and really process those feelings when you're also trying to do the right thing and stand up for this person who you look up to so greatly that really did leave an incredible legacy. So I just really want to speak to something, and I know Mike's going to get into this, but righteous anger versus my personal anger. And the only thing I want to say on that, because I'm processing through that, I'm nowhere near perfect. But what helped me was praying for the people that I know that I was seeing their posts. I went to school with them. I worked with them. And because I felt anger and like bitterness, like, oh my gosh, they're just so dumb. Like that crossed my mind. But then I realized like, hey, the enemy can use me too. Even if I'm a follower of Jesus, he can use me to continue a divide. So I started praying for them, and all I can attribute to is the Holy Spirit. It's not Katie at all, but I felt peace, and I felt a desire for their hearts to be changed and a desire for miracles to be worked in their hearts, which is 100% what Jesus can do. The other thing I want to tell you guys, just in case someone else here is on this journey with me, is before, and I was telling you this, before this week, I kind of putted the spiritual battle lens. It's not that I don't believe it. It's not that I didn't think it was real. But I always was kind of like, that's life. Life is hard. We lose people, this and that. I have never felt so acutely aware of the spiritual battle than I am now. The evil. And it's just plain as day, and they're trying to desensitize us to things, even just before Charlie's video, which I wish I'd never seen. And many of you, if you saw, I wish you had never seen it too, because it's going to stick with me the rest of my life. Before that, it was the stabbing on the bus, that poor girl. I was never meant to see that. And I fear that our internet and technology, we are so desensitized to just how much evil is out there because we see it all the time now. So I just want to encourage you guys, let yourself grieve those things, because the minute we start saying like, oh, that just happens all the time, that's just normal, that's when we can start to become a part of it in a different way. Not that you're going to go stab someone or shoot someone, but you could scroll by it and it doesn't even do anything to your heart. So the reason we have Pastor Mike on today, and why I think he is the perfect person and that perfect Esther verse made for a time like this, Mike, so a lot of you that go here know Mike. He's our worship leader. He does incredible work with the employees here and culture building, and his heart is just for people and pointing people to Jesus. But he also is someone who researches extensively, and I know that he is very prayerful and mindful about what he shares, because there's a lot of people that maybe just aren't ready to hear how much evil is actually out there. Right. So Mike, today I know that he's been praying about this conversation, and his heart is, again, just to lead people to Jesus, point people to Jesus in the dark times. So I've got some great questions for him, because a lot of us are people that dive down rabbit holes and find out things. I know I'm one of them myself. And so trying to stay grounded in the Lord is one of the hardest things right now, when you know how much darkness is out there. So I have some questions for Mike, but before that, Mike had a statement he wanted to share with you guys that I think is really powerful. So I'm going to let him take it away.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, I think Katie's right. This is a heavy time, and so and a heavy topic, and one that I've, like you mentioned, researched a lot. And so it's important to me to represent things well, of course, represent Christ well and the church well. I also feel like if you take away from me today that you need to go out and swing a sword, that needs to be a spiritual sword. Just to get that out of the way, I want to be careful of emotions are high and all that kind of stuff. So, I think a little bit about me is I kind of shy away from public speaking and podcasts and those kind of things, because I've learned to call it a blessing. I have an ADHD brain, and so what that means is my thoughts are pretty hyperactive. My brain's very active. I'm always processing things, and because of that, sometimes I'm on to the next thing in my brain while my mouth is still trying to catch up, and so I mumble a lot. So I just want to put that out there. My apologies if I mumble. But because of that blessing in the brain, I love research, and I know that fellow my fellow friends who have ADHD, we're similar in that. And so we love researching, we love drilling down. I can recognize patterns because of that pretty quickly, and because of my inherent drive to seek the truth. Truth is super important to me. And so, kind of how, I guess I can start a little bit how that started. I personally, I don't like politics. I shy away from. I've watched my family be destroyed over the years with political arguments and stuff. But I developed a fascination for government. My dad took us to Washington, D.C. between my 3rd and 4th grade years. And I loved getting to walk around Washington, D.C. and learn about government. I also, I think that was between my 7th and 8th grade years. And so 8th grade year, I had a year of government classes, which was awesome because I could speak to it because I just went to those places. But it developed a fascination for me in government and leadership. And I remember when we were there, we toured the JFK Memorial and what have you. And that sparked a lot of questions in me. And so I love researching those kind of things. And so about 8 years ago, I felt, the Lord just spoke to me. I had this overpowering, what he showed me was we're heading towards this convergence where evil is going to run rampant and eventually be exposed on some level. And whether it's through events or what have you, and that people are going to be so shocked and rocked that they are going to be searching for truth, desperately searching for truth. And in that, I feel like God showed me that they'll flock towards churches because that's the first thing that comes to their mind. This seemed to, for me, associate during the end of the year, maybe in October, November in my mind. And but the message to me was, let's be ready for them. And so my previous church that I worked at, I remember explaining that to my pastor, and that was 8 years ago. It wasn't his vision, what have you, but it's never left me. And it's interesting in the time frame that we're in right now, because we are seeing people searching for truth and hurting right now. So about 8 years ago, I started doing research. Well, first of all, I noticed patterns of untruth. And if I can sense when we're trying to be manipulated, and I started seeing some patterns and messages out there that weren't organic, it didn't seem like. And so I started chasing them, and it led me down all sorts of rabbit trails and what have you in pursuit of that. So when you talked about the research that I've done, I actually got addicted to that, and I'll say this, pretty much every night since then, for 3 or 4 hours a night, I'm researching and following all these rabbit trails, following the money trails, a lot of it's open source, and just learning how to seek truth. So, yeah.
It's also, I think you're speaking to a lot of people, Mike. There might be a lot of you listening that's like, nope, I can't allow myself to do it. I think it can be a lonely place to know all this stuff and realize how many people aren't educated on it too.
Yeah.
And it has to be their own journey at the same time, and we all have to kind of decide like what is worth putting my energy into. But I love what you're taught. You're not in it because of any reason other than like, I want the truth,
right.
And I think a lot of us, at least I can speak for myself. There's been times where I'm like, especially during COVID, it was just like, the truth is scary. And so if you're not grounded in, you're looking for the truth, but you also have this amazing, strong hope in something supernatural that's outside of our world. I don't know how people dive into those trails without like having hope in Jesus. Like how hard?
Wow. Yes. That internal tension, you just made me feel really seen and heard, because you're right. For 8 years, having knowledge and recognizing as trends and patterns of manipulation start to rise, and you literally watch it in front of you, and you try to warn your family and friends. Often you just sound like, a conspiracy theorist. Yeah. So, no, you're right. There's an internal battle. Maybe our listeners out there have struggled with that too, as maybe God's blessed them with being awake and some knowledge. It's hard to wait till the rest of the world to catch up.
Yeah.
And maybe we're there right now. Maybe this is the start of that right now.
And that actually perfectly leads, because we'll come back to what we're talking about as far as staying grounded in the Lord and all that good stuff, the most important stuff. But it's a good segue into let's talk about, for that person out there that maybe doesn't realize why Charlie Kirk was such a big deal. Why are we talking about this in the Christian community? If you hadn't seen his content, so I definitely want to hear from you on that. But I can just tell you guys that the reason I gravitated towards Charlie's content, I admired that bravery to, I believe, Mike, you said this, going into the lion's den. It was you or Joanne. He literally went into the lion's den all the time. He was willing to stand up for what he believed in, stand up for God's word, hold the line on truth, while also never insulting someone, regardless of what you're going to see people saying. He was this, he was that. I watched countless videos. I am not kidding. He was someone that I watched almost every single morning. And I can say with complete confidence, sure, there were times where maybe he seemed a little harsher, but it was warranted. And that's another thing I'd love for, maybe not on this podcast, but at some point, because as Christians, we're struggling with love and empathy, but there's also this time to take a stand for what is right, because we can't love all things. You know, you have to love people, but we can't always love the ideologies or the corruption that's happening, while also just holding that line, if that makes sense. So he did just a beautiful job at it. So if you haven't watched any of his stuff, now is the time. And I think people are more thirsty than ever for, they don't want a watered down faith. They're ready. And that's if I could point the beauty out of this, is that so many people, I mean, we saw it on Sunday, just doors flooded with people. They're ready to be part of a community that is ready to stand on truth. So now, what about you, Mike? I'm doing all the talking here.
No.
Why do you think Charlie Kirk was such a big deal in the Christian community, if you had to explain it to someone that isn't on board with that yet?
Well, for one, I would say his popularity, he had a way of speaking to the young adults. I think, unfortunately, not going down too much of a rabbit trail here, but I think our youth are disappointed in the adults and our lack of leadership and our boldness. Maybe they don't feel protected or stood up for, whatever it might be. I think Charlie was very relatable to them. I know personally, for me, when I look at some of his videos, like you said, to maybe talk about the lion's den there, I am blown away at the ability of him to sit there and take hit after hit of very passionate responses and anger towards Charlie. And I don't know about you, but whenever someone's attacking me, like my face starts turning red. All the things, the fight or flight kicks in, and all those things. And I sit there and watch him and his ability to hang in there through all sorts of vitriol, and with love, and yet truth, and firm truth. And yet I think the reason he can do that is because he saw a soul, he saw a real human being in those people, and they're worth it. They're worth hanging in there and having that conversation. And so, I just feel like you have to have the Holy Spirit in you to be able to sit there and take those arrows like that day after day after day.
And it mattered too, because so Friday, my husband and I actually went to a vigil for Charlie, and they had some people speak, and there was a detransitioner. So someone that, they said that they had lived their lives as a woman for, I think it was 10 years. And they said it was Charlie Kirk's content where they were like, oh, I'm more than my identity, and people care about me as a person. I don't need to keep this facade on to be a part of a community. And said a lot of more eloquent things than what I'm saying now, but it just hit me that, and that was someone that should so deeply disagree with him. But look at how far they came just from the impact of this. I don't know if I can even put it into words. It's more than a ripple effect. It's a cowabunga jumping into the pool is what this is. So I would just strongly encourage you guys to go seek out full videos. these little mini clips, in my opinion, they don't even sound, because I know his full content. I'm like, just go watch the full content. But as a pastor, Mike, why do you think this is so important to address? Because one of the most disheartening things I've seen that's really gotten to me, and I've said, we can't hold people that aren't followers of Jesus to the standard. You know, I can't hold them to my standard. I can't expect them to have a respectful response, even if they didn't agree with him, they didn't like him. Those people, they're not following the compass of the Lord, right? So I have to remind myself of that. But it's the Christians. And what's fascinating, take this as you will, the episode that was going to go out last week was weeks ago, me and Dale talking about progressive Christians versus conservative Christians. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail right now, but I think it's fascinating that it didn't get released last week. Because I'll tell you what, the progressive Christians that I follow, because I want to stay up to date and I want to see where we can bridge certain gaps, because they're not all wrong. But I will say those are the ones that I've seen posting a lot of just disgusting content. This disgusting, as in you guys are crying over this man, but yet you don't care about school shootings. And that bothers me, because who doesn't care about school shootings? Just because we don't agree on the same solution doesn't mean we don't care about the problem. And it's driving me nuts that Christians are contributing to this divide, because I think hopefully as a nation we're getting past the point of it's left versus right. And you've talked about this, Mike, so I'll let you steal this before I keep talking, but it's good and evil. So that's why we're addressing it. I know I answered the question.
No, you're good.
Going to ask you, but yeah, why are we addressing this? Why do you think this is important to talk about?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think it's important. You touched on it. It's good versus evil. You actually had lots of questions or points in there, and I'm trying to think back. The how do we enter into what I loved about Charlie is he publicly debated, and gone is the lost art of debating, right?
Oh,
and
so true.
And with respect. Can we just but today we can disagree, but today on things, but today we're so divided. It's hard to have a conversation with somebody when you're each trying to find common ground and there's zero common ground to have, right? And so, I think the world needed a Charlie Kirk as an example for us. I don't think a lot of us are equipped or maybe even called to enter into the public square like he did. Why is it important? Well, you touched on good versus evil. I think it's important obviously the Bible talks about this and talks about different times in the future that we might find ourselves in, and I think that we can connect a lot of dots right now. We are experiencing, of course, brother against brother right now and all sorts of things. If I can just be bold, I think one of the things that Lucifer, Satan, has done well is to convince people that the spiritual world doesn't exist today. And so, but the truth is, we see it this last week, right? Smacked in our face.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's playing out in the political arena, because that's where the power structure is. In a lot of ways, this really isn't about politics. For one, we didn't talk about gender identity when I was growing up. But today, we've tucked that under a political field to try to make it brother against brother, side against side. And I think that's what Charlie was trying to express, is that his faith in the Bible and the way God created us is counter to the messaging and the confusion out there right now. And so he saw the evil firsthand being played out in our schools and institutions and what have you. And he was trying to ground people back to the truth. And it's one of love, but that's one that Satan hates, right?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it's turned off Christians, I think, to enter into these things. One, I don't think we feel equipped. We're not, like we just talked about, we're not Charlie Kirk. We're we're not equipped and probably even called to enter into some of those that type of arena. But also it's because it's been shoved into this political box, and maybe perhaps like me, most believers shy away from politics.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the truth is we need to go into there, and we need to separate what is truth and what is politics, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Such good points, Mike. And my sister said something really powerful and impactful to me the other day, and she was saying politics are the new God for people. And I think as Christians, you're right. I think a lot of us have been like, I'm just going to say this, and I'm just going to be transparent. I think I've been living in the gray area as far as I know I'm convicted on things. But then I'm trying so hard to find that middle ground and find that common ground. Sometimes there's evils you're not supposed to find common ground with. And when it comes to trans, when it comes to abortion, I mean, I know I'm hitting the red spots here. There are some things that just are not necessarily meant to be common ground find on. Yeah. However, there's love for those people. There's love for the people that have been deceived with things, thinking that this is just okay. This is loving. It's not the people. It's the enemy behind the people using the people. I know that probably if you're not where I'm at with the spiritual battle yet and seeing it, that probably sounds crazy. But and I'm not saying that we shouldn't seek to find common ground with people and maybe get them to think. But you're right, he was so gifted at that. Yeah. So it can feel really daunting and overwhelming to even step into that realm. But I think it's so necessary now.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as someone, this was another question for you, Mike, as someone who has done extensive research on current events, ties, and things that some would call conspiracy, although I would say a lot of us are now very open to there being a lot of things hidden. I know ever since 2020, I've been extremely open. I keep telling my husband, nothing surprises me anymore. There's nothing that can surprise me. How do you stay grounded in the hope of Jesus and knowing that God's always in control?
Well, I've been walking with the Lord since I can remember, and I developed a very deep relationship with the Lord and learned His voice at a pretty young age. I went through my own traumas growing up, and so Jesus was my father and my best friend. And so I've spent a lot of time praying through, asking for discernment and wisdom, knowing there's fog out there, help me see through the fog, the noise, etc., the deceptions. But I will tell you that in this research, I've uncovered an incredible amount of evil. And you can use different methods in research when you get in that level, and you can trace and follow the money. So much of it's open source, and you can find out who's benefiting from what. And so much of it is connected to evil. How do I ground myself in that? There's times where I've uncovered, over especially the first 2 years as I was uncovering things about sex trafficking and all those kind of topics that perhaps are better for another day. It almost destroyed me internally because, I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. So it was tough. Those are dark, evil things, but staying grounded in and just praying to the Lord. I also pray for protection. To be honest, I don't have Facebook anymore, and I barely use Instagram, but I'm on X a lot, or formerly Twitter. And boy, is that a battlefield, and boy, is that a dark area. But it can also be positive. But before I go into that, I pray. I pray that Lord would protect my mind. That's a good thing to talk through too. Is there is a battle out there for our hearts and minds, and we have to protect our hearts and minds. I might go a little rogue here and say, or not necessarily rogue, but just talk about. And first of all, you talk about traumas. We aren't meant to see some of the types of traumas that were displayed last week. I don't know that. And at that level. And you're right, we are desensitized to those things. But if we take a moment and talk about what happens when we have trauma, our trauma response. to traumatic events. If you saw, of course, any of those, the unedited videos of the horrific things, there was also beheading last week, right? And I don't know why. Not to get graphic, I won't talk about what I saw, but it's horrific, right? And if we talk about those trauma responses, we know that it does something to the frontal cortex of our brain, and we move into fight or flight immediately. When that happens, blood is no longer, it's rerouted to different areas from our gut. Sometimes we lose our appetite during these times. We lose all sorts of things, and we have a very narrow focus during that time. That's when anger and frustration, and we're really hyper focused on that, and we're very emotional. The enemy knows that. I mean, he's had thousands of years with us humans to understand our responses. He knows how we're made. And so each of those happening, and so we saw some extremely horrific things last week, and each of those are traumatic in their own right. And well, you take some of the older adults that were alive when JFK was assassinated, RFK, MLK. Mm-hmm. I was talking with Pastor Sam yesterday, and he was talking about how his parents are relating this Charlie Kirk's assassination to those, and how they felt, and how it just upset the world, and how they were just numb and shocked. And so that was one type of situation where we had several that we were all visible last week. And so that is a tool that the enemy can use to confuse us, to drive us towards things. And so I think we have to be careful with those emotions, those emotional responses, because we're not capable in those moments to make necessary appropriate judgments, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I might have lost track in my head.
No, that's all such good stuff that I know we need to hear, because it perfectly led into my other question, which was, what is a Jesus response to people who have blatantly disrespected Charlie and his work and his death? And so you already kind of touched on it, that we have to be wary of what our emotional responses are. But that question that my teammate asked about righteous anger versus my anger, and where's that fine line? And I can tell you guys, I have no regrets for who I have engaged with on the internet after this. And it's because I didn't say anything mean. I didn't say anything that I wouldn't say to someone in person. That's kind of a lens I use a lot of times on the internet. And even if it was somebody from a completely different political realm and this had happened to, I like to think that if that was my brother, my father, my husband, that people would be coming out of the woodwork to correct the people that are spewing this terrible narrative, rhetoric, all the things. I would like to think people would come out that feel it on their hearts, and they wouldn't just sit back. They would say, hey, this isn't accurate. Go watch it in its full context. Or, hey, he was not a racist. Hey, he was not this. And I feel like there's a small percentage that have gotten so loud. And Mike, you even said this the other day, and this thought brings me hope. There is still a lot more people with good in them that we've just been silenced. Yeah. Nobody wants to be called those names. Yeah. But that's a tactic. Yeah. It's a tactic to keep people silenced. Yep. And one of my favorite verses, you probably would know better than me, but it is speaking up for those who cannot, judging people fairly. And so I've been trying to stay grounded in that, while also knowing there are certain times where this is taking emotional energy away from my family, and I probably need to put my phone away. So I'm constantly battling that. I'm not perfect at it, but sometimes I have to literally just put it in my room and be like, okay, kids, let's go play. Or and I'm not good at it yet, but I know that there's certain times where it just sucks the emotional energy out of me. Yeah. But I also hate not saying something sometimes too. It's such a hard line to walk.
Oh man, that was so good. I shared on Sunday from the stage that I'm struggling with, where does righteous anger end and my personal anger? Yeah. Where's that line? And so I have to seek the Lord on that. Those are so great questions, and only God can answer that for us. We can look to Jesus' example of when did he get angry and when did he show righteous anger. We often we point to when he overturned the merchants' tables in his Father's house, in his temple, right? That was our one display of aggression from Jesus, and we all know it was righteous anger, right? I think that there's so many different directions to go with this. First of all, the enemy wants us divided.
Absolutely.
When you look, you can do all sorts of research on things like, I'm going to throw a phrase out there and hopefully people don't. You can do research on color revolutions. You can do all sorts of things research out there, and you're going to see the same patterns in overturning and reversing a public's thought and moral structure, etc. So how to enter those things? Well, first of all, Charlie's example was screaming back. If someone's screaming at us, screaming back's not going to solve anything, right? How do we do it in love? And I think we have to look at Jesus' example and how he responded. And we're not Jesus. We're not perfect. If you believe in Jesus, you are gifted with the Holy Spirit that I want to encourage you to pray. Pray that God would help you and give you the words to say, help you know the actions to take. And I think I know we're going to talk a little bit at the end about some actions. But first of all, I think if you're going to divide a team or a country or a group of people, if they're solid, you can't penetrate them. Confuse them, getting them to fight with each other. When you look at The Art of War and all types of different manuals and stuff, the whole idea is to actually win the war before you fire a shot. And so if America's under attack, which we firmly believe it is, morally and however you feel about Trump or not, if you've listened to him say the words, "We are fighting an invisible enemy," ask yourselves what he means by that. And so we are fighting this invisible enemy, and we need to be armored up. We need to be aware of it. And the idea of America can be destroyed easily. The war, before a bullet can even, a shot is fired, it can be won by turning people against each other. Absolutely. And so divided, we are weak. Together, we are strong. Somehow in this, we have to stop spitting at each other and screaming at each other's faces, and we have to turn around, backs to each other, and fight the invisible enemy. How do we get there? Boy, gosh, this is such a spiritual battle. The great thing about what brings me comfort is, number one, Jesus talked to his disciples before his ascension to heaven, and he said, you're going to face trials of many kinds in this world, but take heart because I have overcome the world. Yeah. We have to understand the power that is in us. Greater is he that is in me than it is in this world. And so you just talked about something too, that the enemies, believe it or not, I don't believe we're outnumbered. And I think that's what the enemy wants us to feel like, is that we're outnumbered. When we do that, we lose our voice, we lose our confidence, we retreat, we become isolated, etc., and we lose all power.
So true. Yes.
So we are not outnumbered. Believe it or not, more people in the United States and probably the world agree and align with moral values than we recognize. And so we should take heart in that, but we should also do what we can to love one another. And I know it's impossible. Like we talked about, is how do you do that when you can't even find common ground? And those are the things that we need God, we need the Holy Spirit to help us, to show us ways that we can be effective in that way.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good, Mike. One person on the internet isn't the enemy. it goes further than that. So I think trying to remember that when we are talking to someone and realizing like, oh, they are not the enemy, but they are being used as a pawn.
Yeah.
And I have to check myself too. Am I being used as a pawn? Like, because we're meant as followers to look different than the world. If I'm engaging with somebody on the internet, this is kind of the standard I set for myself, and I'm not perfect at it, but I like to think if someone could just see on paper every comment I've made, anything like that, would I ever be embarrassed to say that I'm supposed to be representing Jesus and I just called you a name, I just attacked your character and I don't even know you? Or did I stick to the facts when I was talking? Did I debate well? Did I make a good point? Did I try to believe the best in my opponent? If I can have those things, I can walk away not caring what anybody on the internet attacks me for, because I've gotten into debates and people have come out of the woodwork. I posted a video on TikTok just last week where I was talking to my kids, and this is literally the only thing I said was, kids, I need to ask you guys a question. Do you think it's okay to hurt someone if you disagree? They said no. And I said, what if you hated what that person said? You disagreed really strongly. Is it okay to hurt them? My kids all said no. That's all I posted. I just wrote, it's this simple. That's all I wrote. I had people coming out of the woodwork. You're white privilege. You're this and that. I can't believe like how your white supremacy is just shining through. But I didn't even care, because I know none of that to be true. And I know that I'm raising kids that are going to stand on good stuff. Like if I can look myself in the mirror every day and know that I'm okay. And that's how you guys should be too. Because when you're standing for things, it's easy for all that noise to be like, you second guess it. Like, oh my gosh, am I this? Am I that? But if you know you're not, and you are standing firm on the word of God, the truth, then you don't even need to feel any sort of way. It doesn't feel good. I mean, I'm not going to say that I love getting, beat up on the internet, but I also I can go to sleep at night. I have zero guilt. So,
well, okay. You just said something. So human behavior is fascinating.
Yeah,
I love studying human behavior. You can take an example of, so before Christ's death, we have Palm Sunday. And if you take a look at just the extreme from here's Israel on Palm Sunday, right? Jesus is on it. They put him on a donkey, laying the palms in front of him. They're begging him to be their king, right? And I just have this picture. It seems like this quiet event, this huge event where everyone wants to make Jesus their king. Somehow, a few days later, they have the complete opposite.
So crazy. And
they're screaming for him to be crucified. Well, today we can look at, I don't know, a few years ago, all the riots that erupted all over the place across our country. You can watch. It was just a couple of posts on social media that sparked everybody to leave their homes, get in the streets with torches and start fighting, right? So back then they didn't have Facebook or internet.
Yeah.
So what changed? Assuming some of those were the same people, what changed their hearts? I also look at Jesus on the cross and his example to say, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. What does that mean? They don't know what they do. Are they? I have come to firmly believe that they were demonically controlled. And so Satan was he knows the Bible. He knows how it ends. And his tactics back then were to seek and destroy, so that God couldn't fulfill his plan. As time gets closer and closer, it stands to reason that he's fighting with everything he's got. And so, I lost my train of thought now.
Oh, so powerful. I mean, I don't know what else you could say to that. The picture of Jesus on the cross saying, forgive them for, it's easy to forget that piece, but you're absolutely right. It's so important for us to remember that.
And so in that, what did Christ see? He saw beyond their behavior, so he could separate the behavior from the person. And I think that's what Charlie did so well, is so may we pray for that. In leadership, let's say you're even disciplining, and let's say you're a parent or you're in some kind of leadership, and a consequence needs to be given. You can't be emotional about it. You have to separate the person from the behavior and just address the behavior.
Yep.
You talked about something a bit ago. These soundbite type responses to arguments, like how do we can't win on them. I think you talked about a scenario where somebody came back, well, you don't care about school shootings, but you care about Charlie Kirk. I actually read something last night. I don't know how I came across this, where Charlie actually had recently had some kind of forum where he invited a bunch of influencers too. And they came from all different walks of life and beliefs. And his whole, from what I understand from their testimonies, his whole point was to gather them together, and he wanted to see how they could debate each other and then coach them. In some of the testimonies they talked about, so it'd be similar to the comment you just had. Well, we're focusing on just the evil that happened to an innocent man, a father, a husband, a Christian, and then someone cares. Well, you care more. You don't care about school shootings. Charlie, that was the testimonies gave like an account for a similar situation, and Charlie came back and said that is moral blackmail. And I want to research a little bit more exactly what that means, but it's almost like a blackmail type. I think I can connect the dots a little bit to that. Yep. And so I'd like to research that more. Those are tools. I think if you're confident in what you believe and confident in Christ, then we should be confident in speaking truth.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be one or the other. Just because you care deeply about this horrible thing with Charlie does not mean you don't care deeply about horrible things that happen.
Both can exist.
There's just this crazy pressure on media to, you have to address everything. You have to stay. And it's sometimes it's not that simple. It doesn't mean that you don't care. So don't let people put you in that corner and make you feel that way, because it's just not true. But tangibly, Mike, because man, so many good things we've talked about, you guys, and it's such an ongoing conversation. But as the church, we mentioned more people than ever are searching for what Jesus gives. And so how we represent that is so important. And we've talked about how to do that maybe in debates, do it online. But now, like, as the church, as fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, all the things, what does it mean for the church moving forward? Because I know you've also been doing a lot of reading on that.
Sure.
What does it mean for the church? So if you had to give some encouragement and advice, do it.
You're right. I think I am, because of what God showed me 8 years ago, I am on a bit of a journey to understand what exactly that means so that we can be prepared. And I think we'll talk about that in a second. But to your point, God has a way of turning things that were meant for evil into his good. And all the evil that we saw last week. I also just want to put a bug in there, and we can talk about this at a different time. I don't believe all of the evil responses were completely organic, and we can talk about AI and all that kind of stuff, and how that's used to control the narrative and stuff down in the future. But just to offer a little bit of hope, I know it did connect to different people, because I saw those people get terminated from their jobs and those kind of things. But I also believe there's that it's not 100% organic. But how God turned good into evil into good. Perhaps you saw at your church or on social media, you heard that I know for us here at Foothills, we had a lot of new people that came, and we had so many people make decisions to follow Jesus this weekend. Super powerful. Got goosebumps right now, actually. Just I'm so blessed to be able to have a small part of that and be in that room. And so I believe that God will continue to do that. So I think kind of talked a little bit maybe about what steps that we can do. Maybe I'm jumping ahead.
No, this is good.
So I don't want to just throw out a bunch of things, but something that our listeners can do a little research in. In fact, you can just go to Wikipedia if you want and do some research on fifth generational warfare. And the truth is, so fifth generational warfare is not a kinetic war. It's tanks against tanks, so to speak. Fifth generational warfare is done through manipulation. I'm going to misquote some of these things, but it's done through AI. It's done through fear tactics. It's done for all different things. The idea is that whoever controls the hearts and minds wins. And a person that I've found to be super helpful in my research and keep me grounded is a guy named General Michael Flynn. A lot of people, he's known as the people's general. He's a believer. He loves Jesus, and he's got quite a resume in his qualifications deep in the hearts of our intel communities and as a warfighter. General Flynn has been beating the drum for a few years here now, trying to wake up America to the evils in this world. And he often talks about, so what can we do, right? Because like everyone, we want, like the first question, there's frustrations, there's hurts, there's angers, there's hopelessness, there's wanting to take action but not sure what to do. And I relate to that. I think so many of our listeners can relate to that. What can we do? Well, we talked about perhaps we're not all amazing debaters like Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
And we're probably not called to that kind of thing. General Flynn's beating the drum. One of my favorite lines from him that he's encouraging people. He says, "Local action equals national impact."
Yeah.
So what can we do? Well, without using big fluffy words and scary words, in a lot of ways, Satan's really infiltrated America and our schools and our institutions.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth. How do we counter that? Well, if we look at what General Flynn says, how can we get involved locally? I think it's great to be on social media and have a voice in the public square, but we shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking that we're going to craft this amazing post that's going to change the world.
Right.
There are people out there who are highly skilled in that, trying to figure that out. So I think we can go back to, I think General Flynn's onto something here. Local action equals national impact. So what do we do? Well, I know that there are churches, for instance. I know that in kids ministries and student ministries, they're begging for good people to come in and love on these kids and these students who are hurting, who are quite frankly the very target of the enemy's
100%.
warfare. And so, you may not feel qualified, but all you have to do is connect with their hearts and just love on them and show them a different way. And love won't come back void. I'm here today because my parents were divorced between my third and fourth grade years, and I became pretty troubled. I'm here today because of a handful of people in my life saw through. I became unlovable because everybody, I just felt abandoned from those around me. And I thought, well, it's probably just a human nature response, but if I'm unlovable, then that's why. It's because of the way I'm acting, not because maybe who I really am, which would probably hurt more. But there's a handful of people who saw through that and loved me unconditionally and stood by and helped me see a different way. And they won me over. And then I wanted to be just like them. I wanted to give back. And so I went into youth ministry and all sorts of different things. And I'm here today because they took the time to love on me unconditionally. I don't know where I'd be without that. And so while I still was grounded in the Holy Spirit, I really was starving for love and connection. And so that was me, and I can see the pain, that similar pain in our youth's eyes today. So I'd highly recommend that you get involved in in the battlefield, because people talk about them being our future leaders, but our young adults are our leaders today. Absolutely. That's why Charlie Kirk focused on them.
Yep. Yeah. And your family too is first up, but
gosh, yeah.
Absolutely, how wonderful for your family to see you volunteer and put your time in, because lots of times kids are going to want to follow in your footsteps too.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get your family involved, right?
Yep.
Show your kids. And then also, if church is not your thing,
coaching,
classrooms, get involved, heart to heart, because you don't know how you can make a difference in one person, and it can spiderweb out to others.
Pay attention if your kids are in school. And I'll share this quick little story. This last week, I saw a teacher with a T-shirt, and I'm freedom of speech, even if I don't agree with it. Yes, but also I reached out to the principal because it was a rainbow shirt, and it said, "Free societies read freely," which yes, but it had the rainbow on it, and so just to double check, I reached out to the principal. I was like, "Hey, saw this shirt. It's a freedom of speech. I'm not trying to make a big deal, but I want to double check, make sure we don't have any LGBT gender identity in the elementary curriculum where my kids are." I said, if there is, as a parent, I want to know, because my kids won't be coming to school that day. Yeah. I was like, we teach them to love everyone, but we're not okay with that gender ideology. Mm-hmm. And the principal was great, got back to me and was like, nope, we don't, and so double check on things. If you see something, because I even had that little bit like, am I being a Karen? I had that, but I think we're past that. It's okay to wiggle your way in there, be involved, double check on things, because your kids are your legacy. So.
Well, it's those subtle things, right? Human behavior. You can watch a bunch of movies that have language in it, right? And if that's not part of your normal vocabulary, all of a sudden you recognize one day something comes out and it starts coming out more and more. Or, you hear a song in the background, next thing I know you're humming it a lot, right? It's those subliminal things. So the more and more we see that, it can affect us. So good job.
So true. Yeah. So true. Well, Mike, do you have anything else to add before we close out?
Yeah. I would say this is... I think back to what the Lord showed me 8 years ago, and if this is the start of that convergence, it's possible it's going to get worse before it gets better. So, and I don't mean that to be discouraging. I think if God is prompting you to do something right now, seek Him, ask Him what it is. Take inventory on your skill sets and how you might be effective. Pray up. I think be encouraged. Be encouraged that you're seeing people all around you, and that God is showing you, just like Elijah's servant, He is showing you that you are surrounded in the spiritual world with fellow believers and like-minded people, way more than we thought. I would say don't get caught up on some of the petty things, because that's meant to take you off track. Above all else, protect your heart and mind, and know that it's a battle out there. It is war. It's spiritual warfare, and it's for our hearts and minds. Whoever controls the hearts and minds will control the people. So we need to focus on Jesus. Keep your hearts pure. Take breaks often. If social media, put your phone down, because that is just almost doom scrolling, right? We can all get into that, and that affects your psyche, and your fight or flight, etc. So when it becomes too much, go outside, take walks, spend time with family, and just try to cleanse your palate a little bit, so to speak, before you back in. Yeah.
That's so good, Mike. Well, I know you said that speaking isn't your favorite thing, but you brought up so many great points. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're so busy.
Oh, yeah.
I hope this is okay. I wasn't fully sure if I should do this, but I'm going to share something that gave me a ton of comfort. And you might laugh because it was made through AI.
Yeah.
But somebody put in what happens when you ask an AI what Charlie would say after his death. I don't know if you saw this.
I have not.
I'm going to play it for you guys, and that's what we're going to close out with.
All right.
First, I want you to know I'm fine, not because my body is fine, but because my soul is secure in Christ. Death is not the end. It's a promotion. Don't waste 1 second mourning me. I knew the risks of standing up in this cultural moment, and I'd do it all over again. Second, do not let this violence divide us further. The enemy wants chaos, fear, and retaliation. Don't give it to them. Instead, double down on truth. Double down on courage. Double down on your faith and on your families. That is how you honor me. Third, remember this. America is worth it. Free speech is worth it. Fighting for the unborn, for families, for sanity in a culture gone mad, it is all worth it. So dry your tears, pick up your cross, and get back in the fight. Do it with joy, do it with strength, and never ever let evil think it won.